Okay, my name is Shabria, and I am going to be doing my podcast overview about the How I Built This with Guy Raz, Angie's Boom Chicka Pop Popcorn with Angie and Dan Bastian. So this podcast was created and recorded on July 29th, 2019 with Angie and Dan Bastian from Mankato, Minnesota, which are the founders of the Boom Chicka Pop company. But why did I choose this podcast? I chose this podcast because I really love Boom Chicka Pop kettle corn. It's actually one of my favorite snacks. And so when I was looking for podcasts to do my overview of, I saw this one and was instantly interested. For my case analysis, this was Angie's and Dan's first real business that they were actually pursuing together. So as far as was it successful? I would say yes and also no. They went into a lot about their history and just what worked and what didn't and how it took them a really long time to get really to the place of being somewhat successful and then being very successful. It was an over 10-year process. And so it took them 9 years, continuously of just trial and errors before they can actually get to a positive and successful start. And then once they got there, then that's when things progressed. But it did take 9 years, and so I would say that for during those 9 years, for it to be super successful, I personally wouldn't consider it during that time frame. But as far as now and where they are as a company and as a brand now, I would say yes, which is why I have yes, but also no. So some of the major challenges that they faced and had to overcome specifically in these 9 years was that making a revenue was very challenging. They realized that selling popcorn and having to pay for the materials and do all of the work yourself while also working other jobs to get some type of steady income into your household was very hard. And so one of the partnerships that they ended up creating was with the Minnesota Vikings football stadium, and to sell their kettle corn as the concessions, which was great. But then the stadium wanted them to be sponsors in that partnership, which ended up coming with a lot of fees that they didn't really realize. And so throughout the 9 years, they have been opening so many credit cards, really just to kind of help jumpstart the company and the brand. But then they kept finding themselves whenever they would make a profit, it had to go back into the company because the expenses would outweigh the revenues and so forth. And so as they spent a lot of time really developing their product, they ended up sending them to grocery stores and trying to get a brand, a company to just pick it up. But for the health and safety reasoning, because they were working outside of their home, the companies really turned it down, and they're like, we can't really do this. You need to come back when you have a little bit more of a firm and steady start or product that's not being produced out of your home. And so without a product deal, they really just don't have any revenue. They are continuing the cycle as it was before, and without that, they were not able to hire any additional help. And so they had a lot of buzzing, and a lot of people knew who they were. And so the sales were good, but the capacity to do it was bad. And so they couldn't hire people. And so they ended up having to ask their family friends to help them. And so, do I agree or disagree with their approach to business? Again, neither agree nor do I really disagree either. With the agreement is that for how they went into the business and knowing a few of kind of standard business practices, it would have been helpful if they would have talked to an entrepreneur or a business consultant, someone to kind of help them guide the way instead of them doing it really without much knowledge in the area and kind of building a hole for themselves in debt, which is what exactly how everything happened. And so I would have encouraged them to really kind of take a few classes, learn a few things about how to have a successful business, and then take all the persistence that they were having to push their products into that to do whatever they can to kind of help the company And so that's really why I didn't necessarily agree, but also just because of their motivation and persistence. I mean, for 9 years, they just kind of kept going into issue after issue after issue. No money was coming in, their dreams were kind of like being crushed as they felt, but they still pushed through. And I feel like that is admirable to push through something even when it doesn't seem like it's going right. And so the current value of the company is that in 2017, Conagra Brands actually purchased Boom Chicka Pop for $250 million. And this was after they got on the shelves at Trader Joe's, at Target, at Costco. And so they were there and people were buying the popcorn and their revenues did skyrocket once they got onto those shelves. And so at that time, they were a portfolio company and now they no longer are. And so if I were working for Angie and Dan at Boom Chicka Pop, like would I recommend them as a portfolio company? If they weren't a portfolio company, I definitely would recommend them because they really, they put their hard work and dedication, and there was potential there. Like people wanted the product, they just needed the assistance with getting that product there. And so I definitely would invest into it. I enjoyed really hearing about their story and their process and their progress as that that they made as a very small startup brand outside of their home. And so most definitely I would recommend them. I would love to work with them one day. It's I think they were great. So that's all that I have, and thank you for watching.